Good evening, everybody, and welcome to 3 Drink Minimum. It is Monday, October 19th. I'm getting made fun of Ray. Jesus fucking Christ. I am Frank, and I'm joined by the heckler himself, JC Knows Best.
Welcome to 3 Drink Minimum. You're excited, and we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You were so excited
You're
you made it to March.
Yeah.
We appreciate the energy.
Oh, Christ.
I'm looking forward to things in the future is what it is. That's what it is, motherfucker.
Jesus Christ.
Joseph Conklin is here as well.
Yo.
Sitting in the ginger seat.
This is the dangerous. This is the comfy seat.
Is it? It is. I like that seat.
Oh, you said ginger seat.
I said ginger.
Racist.
Chrissy Mayer is at a show in the city somewhere, so she is not here. Joining us on the couch, welcome back to Dan Lamorte.
My motherfucking man. Looking good, too, dude.
He's looking more like a comedian.
He looks like what's the comic, the white comic? He looks just like a comic.
Sean Donnelly?
Not Sean Donnelly, the other one.
Dan St. Germain?
Dan St. Germain. You look just like him.
You look like the white comic.
But guess what? You got it, didn't you?
You guys made it. You
got
finally
it.
became that level of racism where you're like, well, the white guy. You know,
flannel and a beard.
Flannel and a beard, yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, listen,
Is it working for you, Dan?
I love it.
Yeah.
You look great, dude. It's a different look. I'm trying to get adjusted to it, but you look good.
Are you getting a lot of mustache rides?
You got uncomfortable with that.
Squeak.
So. No, it took me a while to process what that meant. And then I was like, it's there.
It's twat on your face.
Dan is probably the most successful comic at this short of amount of time in his career that I've ever seen or known about. I don't know, if maybe there's somebody else, but you've been doing comedy for how long?
A little over a year now.
Get the fuck
And
out
you're
of here.
literally headlining real shows.
Clubs.
Yes,
Clubs.
I mostly feature, though.
Oh, that's it?
Well, that's all. Just the feature.
If you come, I'm telling you right now, and we are extremely bitter on this show, so if you come with the humble brag shit, we will roll your ass out. Like, don't come with the humble brag.
Yeah.
Just keep it real. You're doing great, dude.
Yes, I'm doing well.
There you go. Be
Good
an
job.
arrogant prick or
That's it.
Douse you with
Keep it
gasoline.
100.
Now, for those who are watching and are saying, where is Al Martin? He'll be here in just a minute. We want to introduce Dan Lamorte first, talk about a couple of quick things. Al Martin is in the building, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we've
He
been
will be
waiting.
here answering your questions. This all started a couple of weeks ago, which we will get into momentarily. JC, best thing about your weekend?
Definitely last night, dude. I took him to church. We took him to church last night at Stand Up New York. It was the inaugural church show. Kurt Metzger, who was a former Jehovah's Witness, who I learned so much about, used to be a preacher, I guess. He fucking ripped the stage. Harrison Greenbaum, have you ever seen him perform live?
Yes.
He's
I
good.
have never. It was like, I need to write right now. I got to go home and write right now, dude.
See, isn't that a great feeling, though? When
That was an
when
emphatic
you see it
lap
act like
pat.
that, and it just inspires you to go
Unbelievable.
home and be better.
Del Harrison fucking killed it. Adrian Appalucci. Jamie Roberts came in and did a guest spot. The fucking show, whoever produced it, you got to fucking tip your hat off to. Oh, wait. I produced that motherfucker. Yes, it was a great show. That was the best part of the weekend, Frank.
So the show was awesome, but the producer was an asshole.
True. Touche.
Touche, my friend.
Conklin, what about you?
I had nothing good happen this weekend. Move on.
Cool. Dan.
I got to perform for the troops this weekend, and I picked up one of them after the show. And that was just nice.
No way.
Yeah.
Well,
A female.
Yeah, it was coming.
You notice how he beats us? That son of a bitch.
Quick. He's a
catching
quick
on,
mother
son.
lover. He
Female
is.
airwoman.
Coming for you. That's nice. Good. Where at?
Fort Lee in Virginia.
Awesome, dude. Great shit.
Really? She was in the Air Force?
Yes.
I didn't know they let people that were blind fly.
There was an audience. They probably wouldn't have laughed. But
We have.
No,
We
not
just
at all.
lost all of
Do
our
we have
viewers.
a-
Thank you, Conklin.
Thank God.
Gypsy, do we have any drums or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, you gotta get. How do you not have the rim shot?
Conklin
I
just.
didn't think you guys would be that dry.
Well, Conklin just told he told a semi-funny joke, so we want to make sure that we acknowledge that.
Well, that was the backup joke to him beating us.
there you go. Thank you. On deck. Have him on deck.
That should always be on deck.
Will do.
That and the wah wah wah.
Well, let me tell you about my weekend.
Who asked?
I'm asking myself. The best part is that the Yonkers Comedy Festival, the shows are finalized.
Nice.
Save for one that might pop up still.
Right.
They are
Nice.
finalized. We are pumped. It's November 11th to the 14th.
Huge.
Gypsy, let's go through these really quickly. Yep, they're 11th to 14th. Submissions are closed. We will have the list out Wednesday for who made the cut. But the first show is on Wednesday, November 11th, 7:30 p.m. at the Yonkers Brewing Company.
Sweet.
No cover. Already confirmed are Tommy Gooch and Mike Cannon.
Sweet.
JC, I heard you were interested in hosting this one.
Interested.
Interesting.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see who else, how the lineup shakes out. Yeah, that's that Wednesday. Wednesday night is the kickoff party at Rory Dolan's, where we're actually setting a world record for most comics performing on a single show. 90-minute show, one host, one mic, one stage. Each comic has to get up on the stage and tell a joke or a bit. They can't walk up there and say poop or shit. They actually have to tell a joke.
Well, there goes my set.
We did a trial last week. We did 26 comics in 13 minutes. So we might be going for 100.
Okay, a couple things. First of all,
Yeah.
are we trying to do Guinness for this? Is this like
It is submitted to Guinness.
Now that is what makes it legit. Guinness
Yeah.
is no fucking joke.
We have to
That's
wait,
huge.
but we're doing it regardless. But if let's say they're not interested in coming out for it, it's still recorded. So if it ever comes up, we have the proof of it, and Guinness has to acknowledge it.
Okay.
Now, at any point, will we have a nail salon available for comedians to do a spot in for this record?
We can try that, or bus station,
hilarious.
things like that, or golf station. I don't know. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's well deserved.
I'm so glad I got you to bring that up.
So this party's going to be insane. We're going to have a lot of press.
Yeah,
we have a
it's
lot of
awesome.
industry there. It's going to be
Great.
a blast.
This is huge, man. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Good stuff, dude.
A couple more on Thursday, November 12th. Comedy contest at the River's Edge. That's at 8 o'clock. Conklin and Eddie Messinelli are heading that one up together.
Nice.
Yeah, we got
Good
that.
shit.
You got that one.
Got that.
Later that night at La Lanterna, another contest at 9 p.m. Host to be determined. That following Friday, the 13th, at Silvio's, we have Giannis Pappas coming in headlining.
My man. Awesome.
Chrissy Mayer's hosting that one. That's dinner and comedy for $50.
Now, is Maurisa coming out?
Marissa? I
Or
don't
is it
know.
just
I think
Giannis?
that's if he's doing like an hour.
Okay.
He'll bring it out, but I think he's going to be doing 30 to 45 or so.
I would love to know if he, gets annoyed at people requesting Maurice. Like
He's
they would
gotta
rather see Marisa than him. I
Probably.
wonder if that's an issue ever. Like
Maurice
we'd
is
rather
funny.
you put on a dress than you be yourself. You think that ever happens?
I think so.
Of course it does.
Okay.
Later that night, another contest at Rory Dolan's at 8 p.m. Marielle Turner's hosting that one. Later that night at Duos, JC Knows Best's Heckler Show.
Yeah, we're gonna bring it back. It's gonna be
$20,
good.
and that includes 2 house drinks or an appetizer.
It's a
That's
great
good deal.
fucking deal.
It's a great fucking deal.
Hell yeah.
Then Saturday night at 9:30, back to La Lanterna for a festival showcase. So some of the best comedians that we've all decided submitted will be on that one with some other invited comics, and that's at $20 at the door. So, guys, it's gonna happen. This is gonna be insane.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. Guys, anything else before we kick it to commercial?
I want to get into it, dude.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it. Stick around. We'll come back. We're going to see Al Martin answering your questions here on 3 Drink Minimum.
Are you a smoker and you need to quit, but you're discouraged because it's harder than some like to admit? Baby, why place vapor? Baby, why place vapor? Are you a non-smoker but you like to do the tricks? Well, these are non-toxic clouds that exit your lips. Oh yeah, yeah. White Plains Vapors, located at 210 Mamaroneck Avenue in White Plains, New York. Visit our location and choose from a wide selection of exotic flavors.
Bulletproof has always been about identifying and taking advantage of every single thing that makes people perform better. When you drink it, you just don't care about food. No cravings, no hunger for 4 to 6 hours, and you feel a kind of mental clarity that you probably haven't felt in years.
Have you heard of Bulletproof coffee? I tried it today. I feel pretty good.
You're watching the Zadaza Entertainment Network on ZenLive.tv.
Welcome back, everybody, to 3 Drink Minimum. Thanks for staying tuned in. Guys, in the studio, for the first time, the owner of Broadway Comedy Club and Greenwich Village Comedy Club and the vice president of the Professional Comedians Association.
Jesus Christ.
Guys, put your hands together. Al Martin is here.
Thank you,
buddy.
everybody. Thank you.
Welcome, Al. How are you?
Good, good. I'm feeling great. I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to a great hour.
Good. How's the ride up?
That was interesting. You cannot get 2 worse commutes from Staten Island to Westchester during rush hour. I mean, it's like, luckily, I beat everything by a few minutes. It wasn't too bad. It was like a couple hours.
Good.
I think I could have been in Albany if I left from Manhattan to Albany, right?
True. As soon as you get past Westchester, you just fly up to Albany. Yeah. It's really crazy.
Exactly.
As soon as you get out of the suburbs, you're good. Al, a couple weeks ago, you were brought up, and your clubs were brought up from a friend of ours, Glenn Miller, who took exception to you, your family, the clubs, things like that. Then last week, we discussed it. We kind of debated some things about what your clubs are doing, what other clubs are doing. And then there were some arguments online, which prompted you to want to have a space to discuss things, which I think is fantastic. You believe in freedom of speech. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, which is great. We all feel that way. We think that... JC, help me with this. You back
Absolutely,
me up.
man.
Yeah.
And, if somebody has something to say, what I've seen, with the Sarah Silverman situation, and it seems like a couple of other situations, you always, you get your back up and you say, okay, I would like to answer this. So
Correct.
Yeah. I like that.
Well,
I
my reputation
that.
is very important to me. I mean, sometimes I think in life that's all you really have. I mean, and when
I'll just keep the mic right.
There's a lot of things that people can say that will be legitimate, and I'll say, yeah, it's true about me. But the Sarah Silverman thing wasn't true, and some of the stuff the other day that was said was not true. So.
Now, obviously, we like Glenn Miller, and he said things that he felt and it's great. We have no problem with anything he said because those are his feelings.
Right.
Those are his words. That's up to him. Now, let's do a quick background about you. You used to perform comedy in the 80s.
Late 80s
Late
to
80s.
the early 90s. I think I probably stopped around 97, 98.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was to perform in Vegas, to be on national TV, and to perform in Atlantic City. And the funny thing is, the reason I did comedy initially was because the reason why I was a comic was that, it was something that was a slow time in my life, and I just kind of fell into it. And the reason why I started a room was to get stage time. But it became the room expanded so quickly, New York Comedy Club, it went from 1 night to 2 nights. Wednesday nights at New York Comedy Club was New Material Night with Jim Mendrinos.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Thursday night was College Night. And the producer of that show was Chris Mazzilli, who today owns Comedy Club.
Wow.
So, that's how far back all of that goes.
So you started your own room to get stage time.
To get stage time.
What were you doing as a career before then, before you got into comedy?
Dead-end stuff, burglar alarms, selling burglar alarms.
So you're doing dead-end stuff. You start being a comic, but you opened your first club in 88?
Now, was that your room or actual New York Comedy Club?
It was a room.
Okay.
A room.
And then what happened is that room lasted about 5-6 years as New York Comedy Club. And then I found out that the guy downstairs was not paying his rent. And we got tossed out of there. But we found my own place, my own freestanding club at 24th and 2nd, the current location.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the problem is, I expanded the New York Comedy Club. Then we got a second showroom at New York Comedy Club. Then I purchased a room in Florida. And then Broadway opened up.
Right.
And Broadway eventually became 3 showrooms. It became a full-time job that I really could not focus on staying a comedian. And I had to take a back seat.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is for those who are out there who are ambitious. If you say you were doing dead-end jobs, how does somebody go from doing a dead-end job to owning a club? That's pretty incredible. That's why I asked that question.
Well, I'll make the argument that if you are an aspiring comedian, this is the Al Martin golden rule. The lighter you travel in life, the less obligation you have in life, the better shot you have to make it.
Yes,
You
sir.
don't have a wife, if you don't have kids, if you live as close to Manhattan as possible, these are all, if you live in your mother's basement, you don't have big obligations to have to work and pay.
Frank, are you listening to this?
I'm listening
It
very
sounds like what
closely.
he's saying is you need to give Chrissy the axe. I cut her off.
Well, I do live in my parents' basement.
Time to go. Okay.
I do have a son, but I'm not married.
Oh.
There you go.
So
Okay.
I'm like dabbling in there
You're on
somewhere.
the edge.
Okay.
I'm on the edge.
Personally, I thought he was describing
But-
Dan Lamorte.
That was me to a T.
Right?
There's
Got to
been
grow
lot
a
of-
beard and wear flannel. That's the final.
There's a lot of funny people I've met that they have a wife that doesn't want them going out
Right.
5-6 nights a week.
Right.
Or they live in far out Long Island and they
Right.
can't get into the city to do 3-4 spots.
Listen, these wives will keep you down. You got to cut them. Cut them.
Or they have a very successful job and they have to make that decision. Do I stay a lawyer at $150K a year, or am I working to make enough money so I can have hot and sour soup at Wohop at 2 in the morning? You know, I mean, these are the decisions. So the lighter you travel, the less obligations you have. I think the better shot you have to make it. So the dead end job was essential.
Okay,
In the-
awesome. This is great. So, all right. So he's we're talking about someone who owned, got into ownership of clubs. So by '97, how many clubs had you owned? Or
It's just the one still.
Just the one.
Yeah, and
Right.
that expanded into 2 rooms on 24th Street. We had a second showroom. That was the first in Manhattan to do that. And then I opened Florida, and then in 2003, Broadway was born, and then that expanded into 3 eventual showrooms there.
right.
And then in 2012, the Village came along.
Wow.
Right. So now, when you open up the Village in 2012, there became a little bit of beef between Greenwich Village Comedy Club and the Comedy Cellar. And from what I've read, it was basically because people in the street teams were allegedly taking people from the lines at Cellar and selling them tickets to Greenwich Village. Is that
Yeah, that's what the article in the New York Times pointed to.
right?
It started a little before that.
Okay.
There's a process in New York when you apply for a liquor license that you have to go in front of a community board and express your case, why you're going to operate a club, how you're going to be different. That area of Manhattan has one additional layer, and it's called BAMRA, which is the Bleecker McDougal Street Business Association.
Right.
So when they met with me, one of the specific things they said to me is, look, we have the Comedy Cellar here on this block, and their lines are outrageous. They're long. They're around the corner. And I know this because I've dealt with it with my other clubs. And they said to me, you have to go into this meeting, and you must tell them how you're going to specifically be different than the Comedy Cellar. And you have to mention that you're going to be different from the Comedy Cellar and how. So the problem was, I took their advice, because they were the ones that were going to be critical in recommending me for a liquor license or not. So when I went into that meeting, I stood up with my presentation. This is how I'm going to be different than the Comedy Cellar. What I didn't understand or know was that the owner of the Comedy Cellar was at this meeting.
Oh yeah.
And he specifically heard me call out his club, and he stood up and was super pissed and angry and yelling.
What's his name?
Gnome?
Gets hard to say.
Norman. Okay.
So what happened is he basically got very, very angry. There was going to be no forgiveness at that point. We opened up the club, and our policy is not to go to their line and take their customers. What we do is guys are standing on a public New York City street. When the Comedy Cellar goes sold out tonight, the 8:30 show is sold out, the line breaks, people walk down the block. Across the street even, our guy is there and said, okay, listen, you're shut out of the Cellar, you came for a night of comedy, we have a club down the block.
Okay.
But we don't specifically go to their line.
Al, what about the people who say you're we don't have Gypsy with doing the camera. But what about the people who say that your people are specifically poaching people from the Cellar? Do you have a rebut for that?
Well, they might. We tell them not to, I don't think I've ever seen them do it because there are times I've stood across the street just to watch them. I think they now understand that A, it creates a bad problem for us, and B, I don't think if you have a shot at getting into the cellar and you're online and that's what you came down there for, it's a waste of their time to try to pull you off the line because you haven't been told the room is sold out yet.
Right.
So people aren't going to come off that line. So they're wasting time talking to people online waiting to go somewhere. Time is money. So they don't really do that. I mean, they might have done, one or two guys might have done it the first night. They didn't know. But that has been explained to the crew, and the new hires it's been explained to. You don't do that.
Right. Now, this kind of coincides with the question about, and it happens with a lot of clubs, the Barker situation. I'm sorry. It's a thing. Barkers are a thing.
Right.
But the biggest complaint that we all hear, especially the comics, I'm not a comic, but I hear it all the time. It's a problem all the time. Is, I came to the show. I was told that Louis C.K. was going to be here, Dave Chappelle, or whoever. Why does that happen? Is it an industry thing? Is it a Barker thing? Is there a communication breakdown going on through the ranks?
I have to be honest on this one and say it's more an individual Barker thing.
Yeah.
You know, we tell them not to do this. It's not in our interest to do this because
they come up to the club, they're fucking pissed off now.
Here's the scenario, JC. They come into the room. The box office, they give their ticket. Oh, what time does Louis go on? Louis not on tonight. Now there's 7 or 8 customers behind them. This just incites an entire riot of people being angry, and then we have to either give them, some of them, a refund, or we have to give them an appetizer, or we give them a couple of drinks. I mean, it just cascades into a mess.
Al, have you ever fired somebody for barking, in a
Yes.
That was my next question. Has there ever been?
Yes, and that guy went on to another comedy club.
Where'd he go?
He went to LOL. He's at LOL Comedy Club.
Interesting.
And he's just, I'm not going to say the person's name, but he's allegedly sold 30 tickets to a tourist group in Times Square that Louis C.K. is going to be at LOL Comedy Club, and took $1,000 from these tourists. And now these tourists rose a huge stink. And this guy, from what I understood, was fired from LOL and tried to come on board with me. Now, generally, when people want to sell tickets for you, you say, I'll take them, but I don't want a guy like this around.
This is my thing, because I know that there are people out there listening right now who are saying, okay, if you are telling these guys, especially new hires, you are not, be honest, right? Don't fucking, bullshit people and tell them that certain comics are going to be there and they're not going to be there. If that's being done, how is it that years are going by where these same complaints are still happening?
I'll tell you, because you're getting some new people that don't understand. There's a disconnect in their mind. They think that they sell something sort of anonymously in Times Square, and that's it. They're never going to be found again. The customer's going to go to the door and say, the hell with it, or I'm here anyway, I paid for the tickets. And I don't think they always understand that problem. And a lot of people are living like hand to mouth. So it's late in the month. Rent is due in a couple of days. It's 15 degrees outside. 95% of the people are walking by them and don't want to stop when it's that cold. They want to sell. They got to pay their rent. They got to buy food.
This is interesting.
And I think what happens is they start to bullshit.
Is there not a way to track who is bullshit?
Oh, yeah, we know that.
Don't you write? Their names are on the ticket, right?
They initial the ticket.
Oh, right, they do.
So isn't that, to me, is like, boom, problem solved. This should never happen again. Every single time somebody comes in with a ticket saying, hey, Louis C.K. is going to be here, and you look at the ticket and say, hey, Dante or Sherry or whoever it is told me so-and-so is going to be here.
It's also that simple to not write your name on the ticket and just go against the rule.
And they don't take their commission or something.
Well, see, now I got a question.
That happens too. We've had that.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to actually ask Dan. I was like, you said you worked for a street team.
I used to, yeah.
Have you ever lied?
No.
See, that's a stand-up guy, though. Because no,
I also-
How do we know
Where's the
Dan?
follow-up
How do we know
question?
Dan's not lying?
Look
right
at that
now?
face.
Sell that many tickets.
I sold. If I was lucky, I was selling 1 ticket a day.
Oh.
I was the worst seller. I
Selling
should
is
have
not-
lied.
Listen, I'm going to be honest. I tried to sell. I lasted.
It's terrible.
I
terrible.
lasted maybe an hour,
But
and I started crying. I said,
I
I'm not
could
cut
see
out for
why
this shit.
people do lie because
I'm not
I
cut
did
out
it
for
through the
this
winter
shit,
months, and I could see why people lied. Because you spend
I'm
money
with
to get
Jason.
into
I
the
get
city.
it. Listen, I've worked, I've worked in high stakes financial jobs and low stakes. If you have a job where commission is involved, motherfuckers are gonna lie. My thing is, I always go to the top. Always. How is it that you have a situation where this is repeatedly allowed to happen time and time again? And to me, it just doesn't make any sense.
You know what happens a lot of times too is I don't know how you do it, but a lot of times they tell you to relate. If it's a foreigner, they tell you to say a comedian that's popular there to relate to them.
See, that's not
Like if
That
you
is-
like
that
stand up,
is-
if you like him, you like our comedian. So sometimes
there are
it gets
customers
lost in
that-
translation.
Yeah, there are customers that do misunderstand sometimes.
Hmm.
You'll tell them that this person has performed at the club,
Right.
this person has been there, and they take it that it's there tonight.
Okay.
I said
And
that last
also
week.
think-
Okay.
And I also think that some of the responsibility is on customers. Due diligence. If I'm outside of Madison Square Garden and I want to see the Knicks that night, well, that's a bad example because they're hardly ever a good team lately.
Hilarious.
But let's say,
Who's a Knicks fan? Because that hurt. Yeah, baby. That's a good one.
let's say I
Who's a
go to
Knicks fan?
Citi Field tomorrow night and that game is sold out.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and a scalper comes over to me and goes, "I'll get your box seats for $150 when they're probably $500-600. All right, here it is. I go to the window and it's a counterfeit ticket.
Right.
Do I now? Do I go to the Mets and say you have to give me a refund?
Ooh, it's a good point.
You know, I mean, sometimes
That's a
if
fair
someone's
point.
coming to you and saying Louis C.K., Amy Schumer, and Chris Rock are on the show, and it's $30. In this day of a smartphone, don't you go to a website? Don't you call the club and see if it's legit?
I think
a good point.
Americans are, especially New Yorkers, are pretty much well aware of what's going on when it comes to that type of thing. I think it's the tourists that are being, getting the wool pulled over their eyes constantly, and a lot of clubs do have a significant amount of their audiences. European tourists, and who have no idea what's going on.
It's not a crazy thing too for the barker to say, "Oh, Chris Rock is in town. He might be stopping in."
That's some
That's
bullshit.
not.
That's
It's
some
not
bullshit.
bullshit.
That's still
but still,
that's still
that's-
dishonest.
That's to me is
That's
dishonest.
walking some type of line.
That's to me is dishonest.
That's
walking
very-
the
that's
line.
It's walking the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't, we will tell them who's been at the club in the past. We will tell them it's a good lineup and point it out to them. But we don't condone, and when we've had guys who've done this, they get one warning, and if it happens again, they're fired.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next thing. Frank, it's interesting you said that because that was really savvy what you just said. We know what you would say if you were a barker.
Yeah.
Sounds
I would
like.
never bark.
You would never bark.
I could never do
because
that.
you would be saying some bullshit.
He would say he'd be like George Carlin's gonna be on my show at Lucy's.
Chris Rock was there last night. Who knows?
That's how
true,
I
though, but
started.
I would dance that line all night, and I would get
We
fired.
appreciate your honesty, Frank.
I
Thank
would.
you. Thank you for being honest.
I would dance. I would get fired, but I'd be like, "Well, I'm not lying necessarily. I'm saying Chris Rock is in town."
I can't. He found it for me.
Al, maybe you could hire Frank as like one of your managers.
I'll take the one warning.
It sounds like he brings a whole new set of problems.
Welcome to our world.
Shit. This is okay. That's a listen. We want to be objective here. That's a reasonable. That's a reasonable answer. Okay, if someone's saying, "Hey, these are the caliber of comics that perform here,"
Right.
and you take it as they're performing that night. That's again, it's
If
walking
you say
the line.
people like,
I do want to say
This
one
one.
thing on the Comedy Cellar thing, real quick.
sure,
We have been, the Greenwich Village Comedy Club has been the greatest thing in the world for the Comedy Cellar.
Why is
Because
that?
in their anger and in their hate for our venue, it has caused them to open up around the corner.
Oh, the Village
At the
Underground.
Village Underground.
That's
To
hilarious.
take in other words, when they're sold out on one show, they go to their audience. come on over around the block. We got another show starting an hour.
Wait a minute.
With all the same comics, yeah.
Who's the owner of the cellar? Come on, look it up because we need to.
Okay.
This is a special PSA now from Al Martin.
That's right.
I have helped you, motherfuckers, grow your
Noam
business.
Noam Dorman.
In all the years that they are at that location, they never thought to open up that room until they had such anger
That's
and
hilarious.
vindictiveness towards me that they opened up their second room around the corner, and I heard they do well over there too.
Al, I'm sure
Now
he would
that-
hate you if he heard you say that.
Now that
Just
whole
so we know.
area-
They hate me, but it's reality.
That whole area is now just a comedy hub.
It is.
With
Listen,
Village Lantern,
with his other
Grizzly
room-
Pear.
With
Yeah.
his other room,
Mhm.
that he has a couple of sellouts and the original room, we still sold out 5 shows over the weekend at Greenwich.
Wow.
I'm glad you brought up Greenwich because that was one of the things that Glenn Miller, who his name is Glenn Miller, Satan's comic, had to say when you were not here to defend yourself. Was he said, and I don't want to misquote him, Frank. He said that Greenwich Village Comedy Club was a
Shoebox from hell.
Well, it is. It's a small room. I mean, it's a 60-seat room, and it's in the lower level, and it's a throwback to the original days of comedy.
It is
That in small, tight rooms, that's how comedy
started.
And I'm not ashamed of it. It's a small room. It's very intimate when it's packed. It's a great vibe. A lot of comics love working there.
Right.
But, it's very different than Broadway, which is a 180-seat room that's very spread out. So,
Al, what do you say to that when people say your club, your Greenwich Village Comedy Club is a shithole? What do you say?
I'm laughing to the bank. 'Cause,
Good answer.
That was actually a thing because someone said to me, "I love Al, I love the clubs, but I wish he would just put a coat of paint in Greenwich Village Comedy Club."
Okay,
What do you
Things
say?
like that is
well,
what-
okay. Now the laughing to the bank is good, but with something like that, put a coat of paint and just clean it up a little bit.
Well, then you laugh
Well,
to
we
the
did
paint
over
store.
the
Yeah,
summer.
you
I
could
don't
just
know.
add that
yeah,
little-
we
yeah.
did. We put all new paneling along the sides. We've worked on the sound, and we still got a little more painting to do now. But
It looked a lot different. I was there a couple weeks ago. It looked
Yeah.
a lot better than it
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Do you have aspirations to do even more renovation work?
Well, yeah. The problem is with everybody who's wondering why Al Martin doesn't spend even more money on it. It's in the lower level, and it gets a lot of leaks in a 120-year-old building. That club's only 3 years old, and the walls got destroyed.
Greenwich Village Comedy Club is 3 years
2012.
old.
2012.
Aren't you listening to this interview?
You know what? You're absolutely right. I'm
3 years old, and it's like
3 years old. Wow.
3 years old, and water damage all over the walls from the building. Nobody seems to know where it comes from, and that's why we had to redo the work finally over there. But to me, the Comedy Cellar, the original one, isn't a thing of beauty. You got to walk through the audience to get to the bathrooms, and it's down in a basement. It's in a cellar, and it's nothing extraordinary. But to me, it's all about the show and the talent and the quality.
Now, Al, I want to ask you, New York Comedy Club. It was your first room. It was your
Yes.
first venue.
Yes.
2 rooms you had. It's legendary.
The first
it really
one
is.
to do it.
Why did you sell it?
Oh, simple. I'm getting older. I have only 2 kids that are interested in the comedy, and one was in Broadway and one was in the Village. New York, the worst competition for New York is when Broadway opened up, because my street team that I had selling tickets in Times Square for New York wanted to go to Broadway because it was right there in Times Square. So right away, New York lost a lot of its business, and the location became a handicap. And for many, many years it was that way until the street team at the comic strip got into a beef with the comic strip. And they contacted me, and they came aboard, at New York Comedy Club. But the problem was, New York Comedy Club is a very successful club if it could be owner-operated. The owner on site, the owner running it,
Right.
one owner there a lot of the time. Then it becomes a way, you buy the club and you make a living out of working your own club, like I did in the early years. It is very difficult for that room, in my opinion, to make money with absentee ownership.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So now let me ask, because you bring up, beef and stuff with the street teams. Isn't it in everyone's best interest for all the clubs to kind of get along for the most part? Because these comedians sometimes, with these turf wars and territories and things like that, some comedians are really pulled from one direction to another. And, okay, I feel like I can't perform at that place because it'll upset this guy or that guy, or it doesn't make sense for me to go there because this one has 2 clubs. Isn't it in everyone's best interest for all these clubs to kind of have a common goal?
Actually, I think you just answer it doesn't sound like it is. It sounds like it's better for competition, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
I have, because I was a comedian,
Right.
I think the most, and of course I could become hypocritical on this because I don't really have someone that's opened up a block away from Broadway or something, but generally speaking, I don't like the concept of telling comedians who in Manhattan are working on a weekend for $75 a set and weekdays for $20 or $25 a set. I don't have the stomach to tell them you can't work another venue near my club. The Comedy Cellar has allegedly told many comedians. I have a letter in my emails of a comedian that just was told that he's allowed to not. He's passed at the Cellar, but he can no longer work at the Greenwich.
Oh.
Now,
he can know. Oh,
if he works at Greenwich, they will not use him at the Cellar.
Wow.
that's
sucks.
really
Who is that hurting? Because Al Martin's going to find another comedian to work at Greenwich.
Right.
It's hurting this poor guy who's just trying to make a living. He's not at the level of Jim Norton or Dave Attell or Louis C.K. He's just trying to make a freaking living, And he's being told now, if he does 2 sets at the Cellar and then can do another 2 sets at Greenwich, he's doubled his income. He's gone from, $50 a night or $80 a night to $130 a night or something.
okay, so all right, let me just try to be devil's advocate because I'm gonna say I hate that. That sounds fucking shitty and I don't like it. But let me just try to play devil's advocate to try to understand it. Is the owner saying that because he does not want his comic associated with a club that he thinks is a shithole? Is that the reason what it is?
I personally don't know what's going through his head, but I think the first word you said is his comic. We're in the United States of America.
Jesus
JC.
Christ, that's a good fucking answer. That's true. Who's owning people?
Who's owning people?
Who is owning people? I don't like that shit.
No, it's
Exactly. This is the United States of America. It's not his comic. It's a human being. And, how could, I think it's the worst thing in the world to tell him he can't work a couple of blocks away.
Yeah, that's...
It's sad.
What is I wonder what the reason is that he obviously hates you or has animosity towards you.
animosity towards
So that's the reason why he figures I don't want to be associated with Al Martin. Therefore, if you work for me, you cannot work with Al Martin.
He's trying to punish me.
Yeah.
And the punishment is great because I sold out 5 shows there over the weekend.
Al Martin talks a lot of shit, dude. Jesus Christ.
He owns, I think, that building, but per square foot, I'm probably paying less rent than he is, or less on his mortgage.
Wow.
So
do you think
know
it's
what?
also a perception issue where he says, listen, now that you've been passed at the Cellar, you're not allowed to, publicly take a step back.
Okay, now that's what maybe I'm too brash, but that's what I was basically trying to say.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
The power in all of this does not lie with the owner of the Comedy Cellar. He's the emperor who wore no clothes. He has no power. Because tomorrow, if Jim Norton, Dave Attell, Artie Lang, Colin Quinn, Sherrod Small, all these guys got up and said, I'm working any damn club I want. All you need is those 6 guys. Is he going to tell them you can't work another club in the city, whether it's the Village Lantern or My Room or anywhere else? If they're getting ready for a comedy tour and they want to work as many sets as possible?
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe he's targeting those comedians that haven't hit that level, so they're
Of course. And what do we
probably.
call that? We call that a bully. Let's put the pressure on some young guy. And I don't blame the comedian. I'm not angry at him. This poor guy, it's his dream to work the cellar. He wants to. It's not the cellar. He wants to be working alongside Chris Rock and Amy Schumer and Artie Lang and all those guys. He wants to be near them. So he can't turn that down. It's impossible. I get it. But you know what? I made a comment the other day online, and I said it, and I stand by it. The cellar lineup you see today was Greenwich's lineup 2 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
Go on their website.
Yeah.
They're copying my lineup from 2 years ago. We were ahead of the curve.
It's fresh.
He's right. He's not wrong.
Okay.
It's the truth.
You know, I've dealt with this baloney my whole career. When I was down in Florida, there was a national chain that was keeping acts out of my club down there. And you know what? There were so many comedians that are talented. You can't win that game because eventually, in the years that I was there, we had Artie Lang there. We had Brett Butler. We had Paulie Shore. We had Damon Wayans. We had Sean Wayans. We had Marlon Wayans. We had Samore. We had Gilbert Godfrey. So,
do you ever feel like you're often the target of all these other club owners?
Is Al Martin
why is this?
enemy number one?
Why do you think that is, Al?
Yeah, well, someone told me this a long time ago. When I started in the business, the big players were the Improv on 44th and 10th, Catch a Rising Star.
Catch a
on
Rising
1st and
Star,
90th.
yeah.
So they were the big players. And one day I said to a good friend of mine who still works for me, Chris Murphy, he was the nighttime manager at the Improv back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I said to Chris, why is it when comedians come in the room, all they talk about is the Improv, and they never talk about me? He goes, Al, you're not a threat. You're a low man on the totem pole. You got a little club. Be happy they're not talking about you. You're not on anybody's radar. As the years went on, and New York Comedy Club became 2 showrooms, and then Broadway opened up with 3 showrooms, and then Greenwich opened up. Suddenly, Al Martin wasn't that little piss out on the street. The Improv had closed, Catch had closed. We were dominating the ticket sales in Times Square. Now Al Martin became the target.
Al, would you say that you are a vicious businessman?
I would say there have been 2 Al Martins in the comedy career. There were the early years when I had to scratch and I had to claw and I had to hustle for every dollar I could make. I was raising a little kid. I had to be focused beyond belief to just try to make a living and make my bills. People tell me now the more recent version of Al Martin in the last 10 or 15 years, 10 years, has been a lot different. A lot more of a benevolent person, not as, hung up on being vicious, etc. But if I have to be vicious to defend what's my turf, I will be.
You're also very public, Al. Like, for example, when they asked who the owner of the Comedy Cellar was, we had to Google it.
Right.
Nobody has to ask who the
I knew
owner
the name,
of
but I
Broadway
can't
and
pronounce it.
Greenwich. And you're very much the public face of these clubs, and whereas a lot of the other owners aren't.
Yeah, I like that. I've seen videos with you and Emma Willman, her asking you questions, mistakes that young comics make, and it seems like you are out there for people to reach out to.
Hands on.
Yeah. You're involved.
I wasn't like that in the earlier years. I was very focused on business, but as the years have gone on,
I think that's great. I think that's an important to kind of discern, because to your point, I kind of want to know, why does everybody, well, not everybody, but why do fucking people not like Al Martin? Right. Is there something we're missing? Is there, because you seem like a reasonable guy. Is there something? What are we missing?
There's a generation maybe of earlier comics that I was cheap, maybe, or I didn't pay as much because I had a smaller room.
Al, I've heard. Listen, we're all. Dan is a
Well, I just
comic.
wanna
Joe,
add
we're all
something.
comics.
A lot of the people that we hear that are comics that say they don't like Al Martin, subsequently enough, are people who aren't working
For Al Martin.
With Al Martin.
Exactly.
Yeah, the ones I fear
That's what
are
I
the
usually
ones that occasionally this does happen, where someone will send me a link to a podcast where there's a person that I work a lot, and they're bad-mouthing me. So
Right.
that one freaks me out.
Right.
But to speak to Dan's point, that's very true. There are a lot of comedians that will talk bad stuff about me, and in the end, it's because they're not working for me or they don't know me.
Al, are you cheap now?
I think I pay in accordance with all the other clubs. It could be $5 either way, but I don't.
I'm putting it out there. A comic will make $25 on a weeknight.
Right.
Would you say you pay in that realm?
Yeah, we pay $25. Exactly.
Okay, I have heard that you're cheap. So I don't know where.
It depends on the comic. Is it a newer generation comic, older generation? People have compared me many times to like the George Steinbrenner of comedy club owners. George started out very hated as a comedy club owner.
Yeah.
And as the years went on, he became softer and people liked him. And, he would give advice. And behind the scenes, he would help people out and do things like that.
I have to say that comparison popped in my head before when you were talking about no one owning a comic, and Steinbrenner was very big push on the free agency. It came from him where teams did not own a player that he had the ability to play other places. And that example popped in my head before when you said that.
Right.
Now, when you hear a comic that you do work with bad-mouthing you on a podcast, do you not book them anymore, or do you actually reach out and say, hey, what's going on?
Them.
You do challenge them.
Yes, I do challenge them. I emailed them. I'll give you a name, Christian Finnegan. Christian Finnegan came on to a podcast, and he started the interview by saying, the question to him was, and from what I understand, there were a few drinks being kicked back before the podcast, but
3 drink men. We only allow 3.
I'm only on number 2 right now.
Right. But the question to him was, what is your favorite comedy club in Manhattan? And his answer was Broadway Comedy Club. He said it.
Okay.
And I was, oh, wow, good for Christian, right? He should have stopped there. He kept going. Now, at that time, we were putting Christian up every single night of the week. He was really a club favorite, and we were putting him up. And he proceeded to say things like, Broadway dupes people. They put on great comics like me and others, but they save a couple of spots a night for newbies. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, so, what's wrong with that? So there seems to be like a little bit of a phonyism on some comics. Mm-hmm. Like they pretend like they're there for the underdog, but then they get a little snobby about the venue, like, oh, I'm on this show and this guy is on the show with me, What's that all about?
I've got a question from the chat room. Bronson John actually throws out several questions. Does he really pay the old guys, or do they work for free? I don't know what he means by the old
I don't know what
guys.
he means by the old
Okay. Bronson, please clarify that. But the other question he has is, why are the drinks watered down? Do they have a liquor license?
Let's go. Let's talk about it.
Of course we have what's called the... First of all, I don't ever recall reading in the book of opening a comedy club that a comedy club has to have a full liquor license. We didn't break any laws. We have a beer and wine license, and that is what we serve. We serve. Now, within that, I have to be very creative. We have found we sell wine coolers. We sell a full selection of wines, a full selection of beer. We have virgin drinks. We sell sake, which I don't think any other comedy club in New York sells. We do sakatinis. We've actually imported a whole bunch of sake drinks, mixed sake drinks that are made of sake. We also have found a company that makes wine-based tequila, wine-based vodka, and wine-based rum. We offer that on the menu. Those are the things that are offered on the menu. We don't lie.
Wine-based rum?
Yes. My opinion, I don't necessarily like the taste of that as much, but I do like the Long Island iced tea. I like all the sake drinks.
So people, because I've heard this too, Frank. I guess you've heard this as well. People try to shit on the fact that he doesn't. What is it? That he doesn't have a full liquor license. So okay,
but why is it necessary? Why do you have to have? What law is there that you have to? First of all, people don't even drink hard liquor like they used to.
Right.
I have a full liquor license at Greenwich Village Comedy Club.
Right. Are they saying that you're lying? That you're trying to put on like you're making a real drinking?
I don't know what they're saying, but we don't.
Yeah, Frank. What? Yeah, let's get some clarification on that.
I think
question.
also a lot of people repeat nonsense that someone else says rather than investigating what it is. Why is Broadway consistently one of the busiest clubs in Manhattan if it is the shithole that people are saying it is?
Al, do you have a particular beef with another club in the city?
Oh yeah, Stand Up New York.
But that's on the upper.
Now let me
east.
also say, let the public let the public be the judge.
Wait a minute! I just did a show at Stand Up New York yesterday, and it was great. You have a beef with my home club?
Yes.
Really? Why?
I don't. You know what? I don't have a beef with the owner of the club.
Okay.
I met him. He's a gentleman.
Okay.
There's a guy there that runs their street team, or he used to. I don't know what the status is, but him and I have not gotten along for years, and it's gotten back to me from other people that he keeps spreading the same nonsensical rumors that are irrelevant to anything. We're a comedy club. The number one thing we sell is great comedy. Period. And we sell what we're legally allowed to sell by the state of New York.
Right. I almost feel like doing a Rodney King right now. Like, why can't we all just get along, Dan?
Oh, I don't have an issue with
Just all be about comedy.
Now, I
don't get it.
Wait,
I have no issue with that.
I got
It's
a
just
question.
usually-
You don't like being badmouthed.
I don't like being badmouthed or having people poached out of my business. When I want new people, we try to hire them. We don't try to steal them from other venues or steal producers or things like that.
I have a
Test
question.
that.
I have a
But,
question for Al.
yeah.
I would like to know how you feel about this. Now, if, say, somebody who managed a club or worked at another club said, hey, listen, if you go on this show with Al as comedians and you say anything in regards to the club, I may not give you spots or remove you from a show. How would you feel about that? Like, does that seem fair to you?
It's despicable.
It's just, yeah.
Again, the comic is the victim. The comic is the victim, not me. Understand, if you tomorrow did not book me on this show, okay, because of that, I'm going to have another comedian work for me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and how hard is it for a comic to find more work? It's a lot easier for you to find someone.
I'll
than it is
find
for
a
us to
comedian
find
to
work.
work my club.
Does
Are
the-
you going to find another club that's going to book you as easy?
Is the
comic's the victim?
Are we missing? Is the beef that you have with Stand Up New York? Is it personal? Is it something
Well, it's personal with that.
Names.
I think it's personal with Julius Deneau, okay, who, I'm sorry, I don't mean, you didn't mention it, I did. He's taken to calling my transgender daughter by the name David, which is like calling Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay. There are undertones when you make that kind of statement, and it's hurtful. And it's disrespectful.
I can literally feel the energy in the room. Like, this is extremely tense. No, first off, I don't even want to approach that because no one should be talking about anyone's family. Let me just say that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I work with Julius. I have a good relationship with Julius. I don't have a problem with him. You guys seem. Okay, let's put it out there because the post that you were talking about at the beginning of the
From last week?
Was on my post.
On your wall.
And you guys were going back and forth. And I have never seen anything like that from two grown men.
There was a lot.
It was extremely tense.
He was vicious.
Well, no,
He was vicious. in those
Not just
comments.
it was both. It was like you could tell there was something. Julius is not here to defend himself.
If you go back to the posts, he drew first blood when he made that comment about my kid. Up until then, I didn't care about anything, but that was a serious remark. When you attack someone's family,
what is your history? What is your history with Julius?
Well, Julius years ago worked for the New York Comedy Club crew for a brief period of time. In the American way, he went out on his own and landed a job with Stand Up New York and took over their street team.
Okay.
No issue. He did his thing. He would run his team his way. For the next 10 years, he would always complain that my team was taking his... Actually, for a long, long time, there was peace.
Okay.
And then suddenly, I took on a second team, which he had personal dislike for, the guys running that team.
Okay.
And then that's when things started to heat up again, where, I would get calls from him. My guys tried to take his guys. He tried to take our guys. It went back and forth to the point where, there wasn't going to get solved.
So you admit that it was both. It was both sides. You guys were like, it was war.
Yeah, I mean, he came up and started offering our guys more money. My guys went after his guys, and yes, it was war.
Frank, we got to get Julius. We're out of time, but we got to get Julius to be able to respond because he's not here to defend himself.
Well, you did invite him to come on the show to have the couch to himself.
Let's reach out to him, see if he'll come on maybe next week, or he'll call in, or let's see if he'll respond. Al was here. We asked him the questions. Al
answered everything. Everything we asked, Al, you answered really honestly and respectfully.
If he doesn't bother with my kid, and at least my business interests alone, I'll leave him alone.
Okay, so we got to get a rebuttal. But Al, we appreciate you answering the questions as upfront as you did.
Gypsy, you giving us like a minute to do plugs or no? We got to go.
No,
okay.
3 minutes.
Okay. Plugs. Wednesday, October 21st, the first open mic night at Duos in Yonkers. JC is hosting that. That is at 7 p.m.
Wednesdays. Starts at 7:30.
Starts at 7:30.
I'll be there, buddy.
I'll be there too, man.
You're a Yonkers boy. You better be there, dude.
This Thursday, you can see Chris Vack's Bad Girls of Comedy at Lucy's in Pleasantville, New York.
That's a nice
our very own Chrissy Mayer's on it, and one of our favorite guests, Karen Feehan, is on that as well. It's going to be fun. 7:30, Lucy's Pleasantville, $10 cover. Next flyer, we also have, Angela Cobb's stand-up and storytelling show. That is on Thursday, October 29th.
Love Angela.
At QED in Astoria.
Big fan.
Great girl.
Yeah. We also have, next Thursday, also October 29th, JC's Heckler Show Halloween edition. Are you going to be dressed up in a costume?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Comedians are welcome for free if they're in a costume. They have to heckle them.
You know what? Let's put it out there. Any comedian that shows up and is willing and ready to heckle gets in free for that show.
Gets in free. Okay.
Any comedian.
The only show like this in the world.
Heckler Show, baby.
Heckler Show.
It's tough.
And then we've also got that same night, Lounging and Laughing at Isla New Bar in the Bronx. That's Thursday, October 29th. Chrissy Mayer is one of the features with Dale Harrison headlining it.
Great.
Is that the last one we got? And October 30th, Peanut Butter and Bullshit Comics at Barney McNabb's in Yonkers. October 30th, 9 p.m. Headlined by Leah Bonema. Joseph, are you hosting or featuring?
I am actually going to be the devil, and I'm going to do a set as the devil because it's a Halloween themed show.
So you're dressing up as yourself.
Yes, I'm just going to wear the same clothes.
Let's go around quick. JC Knows Best, Google you.
JC Knows Best, Google me, folks.
Conklin.
Find me at Planet Joetopia on Instagram and Twitter.
Al Martin, where can people see your shows?
Yeah.
BroadwayComedyClub.com and GreenwichVillageComedyClub.com.
Dan?
Is this where I give a couple dates?
Yes, quickly.
November 4th, one night only, Zanies in Chicago.
Nice.
November 5th through 7th, opening for Kathleen Madigan in Michigan.
Nice.
Cool. That's it.
Awesome.
Very cool. Dan, thank you for coming. Al, thank you very much for being part of this.
My pleasure. Thank you, man.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Guys, tune in next week. We'll be here. Same time, same place, Mondays at 8 p.m. on ZenLive.tv.